Guys, what is up? Jeff here for One Fish, Two Fish. In a previous video, I talked about some of the dumbest stuff I have done in getting into, owning and running a fish store like this. You guys liked it, asked a bunch of questions, laughed at how dumb I was, which was a little hurtful, I'll be honest, but justified. So today I'm going to tell you guys about, and thankfully this is a very long time ago, this hasn't happened in a very long time. It's horrible in what died in the order, but I don't know so much that the company set out to do it. They just didn't know the logistics to, and I should have known some of that as well. I certainly didn't. This is about 20 years ago when I did this. As you guys can see, I'm going to try to give you guys, on these videos where I'm just rambling, I'm going to try to give you guys a bit of a background now, instead of just having to, apparently just staring at my big head is not great. So I'll try to give you guys a little bit of a background for it. So I want to tell you guys about the worst coral order that I have ever done in my life. This came from a company that I don't think exists anymore, and I don't even know the exact. The name was like Shashuka Reef or something like that. These guys were in Indonesia, and again, remember, this is before everything went crazy. So this again was when I got started. I didn't know really what I was doing on a lot of it. Wasn't smart enough to research most of my stuff, which you guys know, keeping fish tanks. When you're doing stuff without researching it, doesn't matter if it's buying a fish, buying a coral, half of the time it's going to end bad. So this one ended very bad. So this company sent me the lists. I had been back and forth with them for about a 3-week period. They had a website. They were showing me corals. They were showing me videos of dated videos that I could see were real. Now, all of this could have been faked. I don't think, they obviously didn't, because they did send me stuff. So they did a walk around of their facility. They showed me some of the corals, some of the craziest stuff ever, and even one of the specific pieces I haven't seen since that order, and I had ended up actually giving it, anyway, we'll get into that. So they'd sent me a bunch of videos. I ended up placing an order. It was about a $6,000 or $7,000 order when it was all done. So I had sent them the money. I had confidence that this was actually after I had already gotten ripped off from the other people that just kind of ghosted me. They weren't real. And even after I sent them the money, I was still in communication with them. They just had to keep putting it off. So what I come to find out was this company was notorious for this. They were just so behind in money that when they got new money, they had to use that to pay for all the shipping of their other orders, catch that up, get new orders, and then kind of just do it in that reference. So whenever I had paid for it, I feel like I probably paid the shipping for the last, 15, 20 orders ago, and then I just kind of had to wait to get in line where they would get to me. So that line ended up taking like 3 months, which is just obviously horrible business. They were never going to get my money again, even if it went well. So they sent it to me. It ended up being, I believe, around 7 boxes, if I'm right. It was 5 boxes of coral, and it was 2 boxes of fish. Now, these guys pack very small. If you guys have never actually seen a true unboxing of saltwater fish, some of the fish they pack, it's insane that the fish actually get through the trip. I've seen them pack little, 3-inch by 3-inch bags with chromis in it laying on the bottom, and they were coming in okay. It's crazy what they can get away with. Obviously, they're professionals at this. They know how to do it. But some of the stuff is... So anyway, this order was disastered from the beginning. So as soon as they actually finally got to shipping it to me, which was horrendously hard on my part, what I ended up having to do to get them to send me my order, I'll tell you what I did. On their Facebook page, I found the owner, his direct name, and I went on his personal Facebook page, and maybe it wasn't even 20 years ago, and it obviously wasn't 20 years ago because Facebook was a thing. But this is how I ended up getting them to send it to me. I went on his Facebook page, and he had like 2,000 friends, and I went through every one of them, and you could see a lot of them had aquarium stuff, and a lot of them were, spots in his area that did this sort of thing. I individually started to message everybody on his list saying that this guy took my money, won't send me my stuff. I don't know if you care, I don't know, blah, 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 but I just want to reach out in case you are thinking about doing the same thing. I started, he had about 2,000 people on the list. I got to about 500 when he finally messaged me and said, look, stop doing this. I'm going to send your order out next week. Here's the airway bill for it. Here's the shipping information. Stop. I'll send yours next week. No problem. Stopped. And I even told him that if he did send it and everything went well, that I would re-message all of the people that I had messaged and say, this was a miscommunication. I wasn't aware I had to wait this long. Apparently this is normal for what he does. He did send me my stuff. I got it. It's blah, blah, blah. So I kind of said I would make good on what I did bad. So this order ships. It ships on, now these days are just going to be sort of made up, but the time frame is going to be right. This order ships on a Tuesday morning from Indonesia. So when that happens, it needs to get to me. For fish, coral can go longer for sure. For fish, it needs to get to me and needs to get into my tanks. 48 hours is the max. Anything above 48 hours, and I know that's going to sound crazy to a lot of you guys, that 48 hours in a little nothing bag, but these guys are very good at this. This is what they do. They know how to put oxygen in it. They know how to pack them. They know what fish can survive the longer amounts of time. They adjust bagging sizes. The DOA rates that you guys hear about from transshipped orders, it's just not right. They're not that bad, or we wouldn't do it. Or I mean, I hope we wouldn't do it. I certainly wouldn't do it. If every order came in half dead, I just wouldn't sell saltwater fish. I would stick with fresh. But so this stuff needs to get to me basically by around Thursday morning. As long as it arrives to me Thursday morning, I'm good. They send me the packing, they send me the shipping. I know exactly what's coming. I know what boxes they're in. The way they did all that was actually very good. I was very happy with it. Knew what was coming. Knew what boxes I had to get to first that had the fish in it. It was going to arrive to me overnight, Wednesday night. It was going to arrive, I believe, at like 4 in the morning. Now, this order was actually when my store was back in another province. So it was about a 3.5 hour drive to come over and get this. So actually, and this was many, many moons ago, me and my father jumped in the car, drove over, got to WestJet, which is where it was supposed to come in. Now, WestJet had nothing to do with this. This was destined to fail from the start. The way he booked it, it had to catch 4 separate flights before it got to me. 3 separate flights before it got to me. The way they had booked it, the flights that they had booked it on, it just was never going to happen. They were never going to be able to actually. So when an airline books for us, usually they need between 2 and 3 hours dropped off so they can get it on the plane, pack it, security check it, and do all that stuff. Normally, the same goes for when it gets to the second plane. So if it arrives, and let's just say it went from Indonesia to, say, Vancouver, and then it gets to Vancouver, it still needs a couple hours for Vancouver to take it off the plane, remove it, put it back on another plane, and all that stuff. So they had left around 30 minutes in both spots, which just was never going to work. Now, my fault. I should have known that as well. Spending this kind of money, live animals, I should have done the research to it, and I didn't. So that didn't look like a problem to me. So it missed the first flight. In wherever it got to the first spot, it missed the first flight because it just never was. And when I talked to the airline, they said, unfortunately, that's just never going to work. They never should have booked that. It's never going to make that. And they explained it to me, and they were right. And they were right because it's been that way for the last however many years. So they said, what we'll do is we'll get it on the next available flight, which pushed it about 12 hours. Not good, but not the end of the world. If it got to me then, coral's probably still all fine. Fish are going to be on the end of what they can handle. Coral will be all fine. Most of the order was coral. There was 2 boxes of fish, which still sucks, but at this time, unfortunately, it wasn't as much of a love of the animals as if it didn't come in well, it was going to ruin my life, just because it would have been all the money I had at the time. For the 5th time in my life I've done that. So when that got done, they moved it, they put it on the next flight. So I tracked it, it caught the next flight. And I believe the next flight was into Toronto, and then it was a Toronto direct to Halifax. So it caught the next flight. Unfortunately, because I still didn't understand the time frame good enough, the flight that they booked it on, the one that they said they were going to try to get it on, which was about an hour and a half away, I explained everything, that this was, this was going to be very bad. They did whatever they could to work with me. They said, look, we'll try to get it on this flight. There's 90 minutes. Usually that's enough. We'll see what we can do. So the flight came in from Vancouver, and it was a half an hour late. So that left them an hour. You know where this is going. Obviously, it missed that flight, which sucked because we were already in Halifax waiting for it. We drove over because this was one of my first big orders. I wanted it to go well. I wanted to make sure I was here the minute it came. I could get it and go home. So we did that. We go over. We end up sitting, and again, I don't got a lot of shout-outs for WestJet, but shout-out to WestJet, where in my area, they actually opened up their back, employee sort of high-end area. It was a very nice area. TV, couches, fridge full of ice cream that they told us to help ourselves to. They were actually very, very nice to us that night. But we ended up getting stuck in Halifax for about 6 hours waiting for the stuff to come in. Lo and behold, it comes in. It is at the 55-hour mark. And that was also, too, before I understood the different time zones. I mean, I understood time zones, but didn't realize that when they said Tuesday morning their time, that actually wasn't Tuesday morning my time. So it ended up being a ridiculous amount of time. We got the stuff in the bags. We drove home. And here is the horrible part. I ended up getting on that order 100 and low 100s. It was 103 fish. Out of those fish, every one but one was dead on arrival. No life at all. And fish come in rough all the time, but fish are resilient. If you put fish in a healthy tank, if you give them a chance to fight, you can get fish to come back. I've seen, and anybody that actually does this for a living, there's a bunch of fish that when they come in dead all the time. Niger triggers, blue hippo tangs, any trigger, blue hippo tangs. When they come in, when you get them and you're looking at them for the first time, horrid, always, every time. They're always laying on their side, but the trick for those guys is you just look at the eyes. And if you can see the eyes kind of wiggling around a little bit, they've got a great chance to come back. So out of these fish, every one except a powder blue tang was dead. That fish lasted about 12 hours when he went in. I actually thought he was going to survive it because he went in very bad, was laying on his side. But a couple hours later, he was starting to improve. The next day, he was gone. The worst part, and when I am talking about pieces, I'm going to show you guys a couple of the sizes that I'm talking. This is back when there were no real risk in coral. Now this tank, we're just playing with it right now. We actually sold, we're removing some stuff, or we're not removing some stuff. We had a sale yesterday, so we had a customer come in and basically buy every brain that we had that had color. Some really nice scolies here, but you can tell the tank is very much empty. So what I want to show you is some sizes. Everything that I got on that order. I know I'm a big fan. You guys will hear me talk about this all the time. I love bubble coral. I know also this is not showing up good on this camera. I don't have a proper lens for it. You're not getting anything. You're just getting a bare bones picture for it. So the reason I'm showing you some of the sizes of these, everything that I got on this order was this size. All the Euphilia was big. All the brain corals were big. Everything looked like it was going to be phenomenal on the order. Everything, the size of everything was crazy. It was exactly like if I got that order today, I would be, I'd be licking my lips. This is horrible to say, but I'd be licking my lips at the money. The order that I got that day for what I had paid for it was phenomenal. I'm talking chalices, every chalice this big, you know, every piece was really nice. Every piece looked really good. Downfall. 5 boxes of coral. Out of the entire box, 3 pieces of coral that actually had something to save. All 3 of them were chalices, and I put them in my tank. I gave them. I didn't even dip them at the time because they were so bad. Put them in the tank, and they were all very close to death. I actually had a buddy back at the time that had, I believe it was around 150. It was a pretty big tank for the time. He had a 150-gallon tank. This guy had a bunch of money, so everything he had was nice for products and stuff like that, for whatever was in products back. And I'm saying 20 years ago. It's definitely not 20 years ago. It's probably more like 12, 13, 14 years ago, now that I'm thinking about it. But he had a nice setup. So he ended up coming over and seeing the coral, or seeing the 3 chalices that I had, and said, you know, what do you want for them? And I was like, well, I mean, they look horrible. What do you? And anyway, I think he ended up offering me like $25 each for them. They were dying. I said, yeah, take it, go ahead, no problem. He takes them home. Flash forward about 6 months. I was at his house delivering him an Achilles tang. He had wanted an Achilles tang forever, and it took me forever to find him one. I was delivering him an Achilles tang. He had a chalice about that big that was yellow. When I tell you yellow, I don't have, I'm thinking off the top of my head if I have anything yellow in the 1,000 gallons of coral tanks that I have. There's nothing. He had a chalice, bright yellow. The nicest piece of coral I will have ever seen in my life. It puts every other piece of coral I've ever seen to shame. And I remember asking him, being kind of cranky because he was buying everything from me, saying, where the bejoozers did you get that? And then he told me that was one of the dead ones that he got from me 6 months ago. So I can just imagine what that order would have looked like if the crappy, and some of that is on me for sure. And probably more than some of that is on me. That is, I tell you guys these stories, obviously they suck. They're not embarrassing at this point because it's been long enough and I don't embarrass easy. But I tell you guys these stories to show you how drastically bad stuff can go if you don't do a little bit of research, especially in saltwater fish. Freshwater is not as bad. You can get away with more stuff. You know, people quarantine their fish a lot less amount of times. You can get away with more stuff in freshwater. If you're going to do a big saltwater tank, you are going to spend, by the time it's done, you're going to spend $10,000. If you want all the pretty equipment, if you want all the high-end stuff, you're going to blow out $10,000. If you're going to do that stuff, God love all of you impulse buyers. We love yous. Take 10 minutes, go through, figure out what you want this tank to be at the end of the day. Do a little bit of research on what goes well. It will save you buying everything. It'll save you buying a bunch of stuff twice because you didn't buy what you actually needed, especially fish tank size. Figure out what you want for fish. That is the best thing you can do. If you've got a list of 20 fish and you bring that to your local fish store and say, these are the fish I want, they can tell you that 50-gallon tank you want to buy is never going to work. You can do a third of these fish and these 5 will never go in it. So if you do stuff like that, research, it will save you money, it will save you time, it will save the lives of fish, and it will save the lives of coral. Trust me, I'm going to end up doing another 2 videos of this because I've done 4 really stupid things. The sending the money to nothing was the worst one just because that was brain dead. This order wasn't entirely my fault, was some. And the next 2 kind of get less and less. One is about a clam order, I'll tell you guys. Anyway, that is as long as we're going to talk for today on this. For fun, I'm actually going to go look and see if I can track down the company I got that stuff and see if there's still a company, just for curiosity's sake. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you soon.